Broadcasted live from Hollywood, California. No Saskia Weber today or Omar Zini, but to fill the void, I think we did a halfway decent job. We got two professional goalkeeper coaches, guys. That's right. First off, we got Sporting Kansas City 2 goalkeeper coach Mitch Hildebrandt and Real Salt Lake goalkeeper coach Todd Hoffard, both making the triumphant returns. I love having both you guys on here, man, and I'm excited both you guys are coming on at the last minute. But Todd, you can't steal Mitch's thunder like you did last time we had a KC guy on. So we got to keep it equal here. But no, honestly, guys, I know last minute you.
I do.
Say that again, Mitch. I missed you there.
He's got more wealth of knowledge than I do.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. So we'll find out here in a few minutes when Michael starts asking us questions.
By the way, Todd, I love the motif you got going on there. It's as if you're literally floating inside like an astronaut suit with the white wall going, like you're going to do a green screen thing of like shooting out of a rocket.
I've got to find like little secluded places. And I found the most secluded place I could. This is it. It's a blank therapeutic wall, essentially.
This is a little bit different than the last time we had Mitch on. Last time we had Mitch on was, I think, during the beginning of lockdown, right? And you were like in a rocking chair.
Yeah, I was enjoying life at my wife's house up in the mountains and in a rocking chair out on the porch. Now I'm in my studio apartment downtown Kansas City. A little bit different of an atmosphere.
Just a touch, but kind of before we start the whole episode off, everybody, guys, and we kind of get into today's topic, which is going to be session layouts and how to adjust a pro session for a youth session. Why don't Mitch? Why don't you kind of get the insiders caught up in like kind of what you've been up to lately, and then Todd as well, you with now with the restart of the season, because we haven't seen you since the restart as well.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's. I guess we got back to business as usual a little bit earlier than the MLS, the first teams, traveling around, and they were still down in Orlando, and we were kind of the guinea pigs for how it was going to work. But so we've just been cramming a bunch of games into a short span of time, which has been good because, I mean, like Todd does there in Salt Lake, we play a bunch of young guys. So it's great to try to get them as many games as possible. And kind of, I'm sure that he feels the same way. It kind of sucks sometimes we can't get some of the first team guys minutes, but for our young guys, it's been fantastic to play games and in such a short span of time. And training wise, it's been a bit difficult because we can't really do much on a daily basis, but from playing games and the actual learning standpoint, it's been great.
Yeah. And Todd, I know that you guys obviously had the whole Orlando bubble situation, and now you're kind of back to similar situation as Mitch with a smaller amount of fans, but yet you're kind of back in your home devices. How's that working out?
I mean, so far so good. I mean, now it's the adjustment period for us is, being out of the bubble is, like Mitch said, it's a short amount of time and a lot of games. Where every once in a while we'll have those midweek games thrown into in between a Saturday, where now it seems like every week you're playing 3 games a week. So that's an adjustment, from a physical load standpoint, from just a training, because you're not really doing a lot of training because you're constantly in a regen and prep mode all the time. So that's a little bit of an adjustment for not only our goalkeepers, but a team in general and for much as coaches. So we're just not as accustomed to doing that so frequently like we are at the moment.
Yeah, in that kind of respect, it's kind of a little bit similar to like a college season in regards to like the games are coming quick, hard, and fast. Mitch, I know this is one of the reasons why you kind of wanted to bring up this topic here on the podcast in regards to session layout, because I think right now more than ever, as a lot of youth clubs are kind of going back at it and they're actually going to start playing hard and fast, it's going to be a similar type of situation. So Mitch, kind of in your own words, like what is a session layout? So for maybe some of the parents out there who might not be familiar with what we're talking about.
Yeah, for me, when I talk about session layout, it's mainly, it's two parts. One, how you do the session, the actual day-to-day, from the activation to the warm-up to the topic to in with the team. And then it also goes into your weekly plan. As I, transitioned into coaching from playing, I realized that the goalkeeper coaches actually work harder than I thought that they do. So it's been a good adjustment, but having to think about every aspect of how you want to lay out the week leading up into a match it's actually really enjoyable because you get to tinker with things, and as the team and the coaching staff kind of throw things at you, you maybe need to change. But it's been from a session layout standpoint, it's been kind of good for me because I have young kids, so I more work on the development aspects rather than the upcoming opponent. We play the same opponent 4 times, so 16 games, we're playing 4 teams. So, going into the game, it's not really much about them. It's more about us in a development standpoint, which is kind of the silver lining brought into this, because a normal season, you may tailor sessions towards an opponent, but this year it's more about getting our young guys ready for the first team, which has been fantastic for them.
My favorite thing is looking at Todd's face when you said, you're like, yeah, man, I didn't realize how much work the goalkeeper coaches put in until I came over to the other side. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this part. And you just saw Todd's face. You're like, oh dude, wait till you've been through the trenches right there. Todd, you're actually kind of having a similar situation though. You guys are playing literally LAFC 17 times in the last week or so, something like that.
Well, we were supposed to play them 2 weeks ago, and then obviously with the protests and everything, that one we didn't play that one. We made it up last night, so we ended up playing them last evening. So we're back, training. I just got done with our training session, maybe an hour or two ago, and we're in essentially regen mode, and now preparing to play on Saturday. So it's a little bit different from a training perspective than say Mitch, where we're just constantly in regen prep. So my sessions, I miss the teaching. There's many a day I wish I was in Mitch's environment, because you actually can break things down and teach, and really have an impact. And in a first team environment, it's just a little bit different. You're constantly in preparation mode for that next opponent. So, and who you're going to play. So it's just, it's different. It's enjoyable. It's just a different beast, so to speak.
Yeah, so Mitch, because we're going to try to focus on the development tip, let's start with SKC2 right now in regards to breaking down that week from let's say you had a match day on Saturday, right? So your regen day would be Sunday, probably an off day. Maybe you guys wouldn't even train. What does that week look like until your next match day?
Yeah, so for me, how I've laid it out is, they do a regen on Monday, which normally, our goalkeeper that played on Saturday is just in the gym. Maybe I bring him out to do some handling stuff just to kind of get him back into the week. But mainly the focus is on the 2 or 3 guys that didn't play. And then leading up into Tuesday is more of a harder day. Bring them in, kind of get a good sweat in. And then Wednesday is my topic day, where I figure out so I don't show, it's different. I'm sure Todd shows Alec here with Tim and Richard and those guys, they show the training film. Well, I don't show the training film to our guys. That's just for me to pick out, I film every session, I watch it back, but I pick out what we need to work on. So like I said, I kind of use this year as a developmental phase rather than, okay, we're playing Indy on the weekend. So we just played Indy. So instead of last week being balls over the top, kick it and run like they do, it's more about, okay, what does Brooks, who's our young goalkeeper coming up, what does he need to work on based on what I've seen in the past week or so? Are there trends, or are there things that we really need to address? And then that's kind of Wednesday. Thursday is more of a tactical day with the team. We'll do a little bit of teamwork within our session. So last week was building out of the back, how we were going to build out of the back. So it was a lot of distribution work in our session. And then Friday's match day -1, and which is, for me, I don't know what Todd does, but I have the same exact session we do every single match day 1. And then we go into the game on Saturday.
Yeah. My favorite thing about this is it looks like it's like Mitch is doing an interview to like does an MLS first team coach, does he approve with what I'm doing right? Okay, cool. He's on board. He's smiling. This is good. No, obviously I know it's a little bit different for you, Todd, obviously at the first team level, but I'm assuming it's similar in regards to Mitch and Todd in regards to Monarchs and SKC2. Like your goal really is whether Brooks can play for SKC one day. Your goal's not really necessarily like unlike Indy, which is an independent club. Like you obviously want to be competitive, but at the end of the day, the job is for you to get him promoted to the first team. And similar with the Monarchs with you, Todd, right?
Yeah, and we actually have the luxury. It's not only just the Monarchs, it's with us here of having everybody under one roof. We've got the youth academy, that's right down at the end of the hallway as well. So we have that integration where now a young kid that's with 16, 17, 18 years old can be thrust into the first team, which is great, great for their development. So it's not just within the realms of the first team and the Monarchs, the USL team. It's also that academy. Now, obviously now with COVID and everything, there's a halt on that because there's not a lot of crossover that we're allowed for different protocols and things like that. So we're unable to do that at this time. But in a normal time frame, in preseason, we had one of our young academy kids that went to preseason. Can you imagine being 16, 17 years old, and going to a first team preseason for 2 weeks? The development that these kids have, whether it's at Salt Lake, whether it's at Sporting Kansas City, LAFC, Philadelphia Union, all these different, MLS clubs, it's no wonder we're getting more and more recognition from our players in the U.S., not only just as goalkeepers, but other positions as well.
Yeah. One question that we always get asked a lot of times by different fans and everything like that, Mitch, is, making adjustments throughout the week, kind of based on scouting and injuries, because I think this is kind of a deer in the headlights for younger goalkeeper coaches. Todd, I'm sure you've seen it throughout the years, on the fly, having trouble making those adjustments. Mitch, obviously I don't want to say you're a younger goalkeeper coach, but you're younger in your career as a goalkeeper coach. Obviously a huge amount of level of professional experience at the game. How have you found, that aspect of it?
Yeah, obviously with COVID, it's kind of thrown a wrench into that. Like I said, we play the same teams, 16 times. So there's not really much of a wrench that's thrown into it. It's more lineups and what we've seen the previous game, but the style of plays have kind of been the same. What I've had to learn is what the team's doing on a daily basis, how I need to change up my session based on what they're doing, because although from a goalkeeping standpoint, it may not change, from a tactical standpoint, it may change. So if we have a plan on Wednesday, but the team we're playing did something different on the weekend, we may do something totally new on a Wednesday or Thursday than we had planned. So from that aspect, I may be changing my session every once in a while, but like I said, for me, and it'll change next year when we get back to normal. But for me, I have a set plan on what I want to do and accomplish. And like Todd said, we're fortunate enough to have the kind of range that they do. We have the academy, which I was fortunate enough the club let me bring in one of our 17-year-olds into our environment, which we got him his pro debut last month, and so he's been with us. So really working hard with him to kind of develop him. And we got Brooks, who is with the first team next year. This is his development year, which is kind of why I changed how I want to do things. Like you said, my goal is to make sure that he can go and compete with Tim and Richard and John with the first team next year. And Alec is comfortable with him going into that environment. And if we have to tweak some things based on that, then that's what we need to do. That's why the club invests in us being here.
Yeah. I want to bring this up right now, Todd, especially with you, because you have been around the youth game and the pro game for so many years. I don't want to say you're old. I'm just saying you're experienced. You're a veteran of this.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of the hill.
But I think you see this so much. You see people, they come to your sessions throughout the years, their pro sessions, and they start taking notes, and then they leave. And then they go back to their club and they do their session and they go, oh, hey man, I tried to run your session. It just wasn't working or whatever. And they never really asked you the right questions. And so that's one of the reasons why I want to show some examples here on regards to making sure that you get the context of what a pro session is and how you have to change kind of those variables, when you're doing with the different levels here. So Mitch, do you have some sessions that you want to show us?
Yeah, sure. I can.
Okay.
So we'll take last week. That was kind of our more normal week. It was the first time we didn't have a midweek game in a very long time. So we were able to kind of lay it out.
Yeah.
So last week, so this was the 24th. So I'll share this here.
All right.
Can you guys see that?
Not yet. Did you press share screen? Oh, hold on. I think it's coming through now. Yeah. Yeah, we can see it now.
All right.
Okay.
So this is kind of how I lay out my sessions, what we're doing on a daily basis. Let's see here.
Todd's like, good, I can relax. Somebody else has a PowerPoint.
Yeah, no kidding. It's kind of easier. I found that, laying out each session like this is easier than writing it in a notebook, because you can kind of just go back and find it really easily.
Yeah.
Plus I can pair it with the video as well. So that's kind of how I've been doing it. But this is kind of like a re-entry day for our guys that didn't play. A lot of work. We did some distribution to start out with. I found that with our younger guys, keeping their weight forward. So we do a lot of bungee work, trying to keep their weight forward over their heels. So that bungee is snapping back. So that's kind of what we did this day. And then a lot of footwork stuff. I don't necessarily love the cone work, but it's a good workout, getting the feet moving. I don't really do it on a daily basis. It's more of just the beginning of the week, getting them going again. If I ever do footwork stuff, it's more realistic. It's never choppy feet over cones. So, this one was hurdles, a lot of jumping, a lot of plyometrics, just getting a good sweat, a good workout for the guys that didn't play. Yeah.
No, I'm noticing that right there. And Todd, I know you're a minimalist as well when it comes to the training aspect. I've obviously watched your sessions. I'm a very big fan of your sessions, and I've seen from what you do is that you let the game be the teacher, and the less is more aspect in regards from an equipment standpoint.
Yeah, and just everything's simple, and I think that's always been, whenever I talk to young goalkeeper coaches, is keep it simple, stupid. And I've had many people come in and out of my session and be like, oh, well, that was, I've seen a lot of things like that before. Yeah, I would hope so. And I look at it as goalkeeping is not rocket science, and it's not very difficult, but it can be very difficult and very complex if you allow it to be. So everything in my training sessions, I literally try to keep it as simple as possible. And I don't really deviate, and I know I've had this conversation with you in the past, Michael. I don't really deviate from a 10-year-old to a Nick Raimondo. My theory is I'm not changing my training sessions really for a 10-year-old as opposed to a senior pro. So, and the reason is, if that young goalkeeper at 10 years old makes a mistake, they probably concede a goal. If Nick Raimondo makes a mistake, he probably concedes a goal. So the punishment is always going to be the same if they make those mistakes. So why should the training really differentiate? In other words, I could take the training session that I did today, which I do this a lot with my first team goalkeepers, and I could go tonight with a bunch of U10, U12, U13 goalkeepers and run the same exact session. The difference is my expectation. You know, I'm not going to expect those younger goalkeepers to be able to do the same things or have the exact body shape, hand shape, movement, whatever. My expectation is going to be a lot different. So for me, I'm going to keep it as simple with those 10-year-olds as I am going to do with a senior pro, but that expectation is going to change tremendously from those sessions. So that's, I think, the biggest thing when you were talking about, you know, somebody watching, whether it's my session or watching Mitch's session, and then taking it back to their sessions, they've got to think about that a little bit. It's not going to look like Mitch's sessions. It's not going to look like my session. It might be the exact same session in plan wise, but it's not going to look the same with their goalkeepers as it does with ours. That, I think, is the big difference.
You know, wow, you just blew my head. And honestly, Todd, I always learn every single time I have you on. And, you know, Mitch and I, you know, we were talking off the air when I said, you know, I think Todd's going to join us. And, you know, he said he respects you so much as a coach. So, you know, appreciate, you know, because these are the things I've never even really thought about is that you're so on the money. Mitch, I don't know how you feel about that, but I never even thought about that. Like that's where the frustration comes from, right? Mitch, like, is coaches, is they expect their session to look like your session.
Yeah. And, you know, you can run the same session, just like Todd said, you know, and I mean, if you were to watch, you know, not just my session, but Alec with the first team, Tim Melia, you know, just like Nick Raimondo, one of the most steady goalkeepers in the MLS for a very long time. It's just the simplest sessions, you know, it's just about, just the goalkeeping aspect of the game. You know, it's not, you know, when we talked about doing this topic, I think I mentioned that some goalkeeper coaches feel the need to do the complex scenario or the complex session as a way to justify maybe to parents that they're doing things. You know, they have the mannequins, they're jumping over hurdles, they're jumping over you know, all these different things, when you're never going to do that in a game, right? It's about getting to your spot, setting, and making saves, or it's about recognizing a scenario or a situation and killing it off before it even becomes a danger. And that's the things that we do, and we try to replicate in a simpler way. You know, I don't know about what Todd does, but I very rarely do more than 2 ball sets. And that's only if they give up a rebound, or, you know, if I do a 2 ball set and they hold the first ball, action's done, because you've done your job. If you give up a rebound, or it's not a parry into a right area, then we go to a second ball. But you know, for me, if you hold on to the ball and you do your job, the action's over. And when these guys are doing 6-7 ball sets, or, you know, whatever they're doing, kids are always looking to the next ball. And, you know, it's, what do I do on this one? So I'm not concentrating on this one. I mean, even if you do a pass to unlock a drill, if you do a pass, that pass might not be crisp because I'm already worried about the shot coming over here. So for me, anytime I do 2 or 3 ball things, you complete the first action. Okay, now we go to the second action. And if there's a third ball, then we go to that. But you never do simultaneously. Like if you miss the target on a pass, then I'm just going to shoot the ball early because you just gave away the ball. So if you complete the pass, I'll let you get to your spot set and do your job. But that's kind of where I've come from, you know, in my thinking of laying out a session.
Yeah. You know, Todd, you brought up something that I thought was really great right there in regards to the punishment is going to be the same regardless of the level for the mistake. And one of the, you know, maybe playing devil's advocate, some people might be like, yeah, but so-and-so can get away with something at this level, but they can't get away with it at this level. Like what is your counter argument to that?
I mean, who are we talking about? Are we talking about a 20-year veteran that might be able to get away with it and then making a mistake? Or are we talking about that rookie goalkeeper that makes a mistake? I think, and there's a difference, I think, there. That rookie that maybe makes that mistake might not have as much leeway or as much rope, so to speak. But that 20-year veteran, they make maybe the same exact mistake. They might still play the next game type of thing because they've earned that over the course of time. So, and you see that. You see that an awful lot. Nicky, for example. Did Nicky concede some bad goals from time to time? Of course. Was he still going to play the next game? Yeah. If we had a young David Ochoa or any of our young goalkeepers that maybe did the same exact mistake in a game and conceded a goal, somebody else might have an opportunity. And I think you see that all across the world, and you earn that over the course of time. So, and that's not just at RSL. That's the same thing, at Kansas City. Tim Elia, obviously, he's going to make a mistake. We're human. He's going to concede a bad goal over the course of a 34-game season. Odds are Tim Elia is going to play the next game, most likely. Whoever that number 2 or number 3 in there in that same situation might not have that luxury. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast and kind of who you are as well.
Yeah. Mitch, did you have or Todd, did you guys have a session that you wanted to bring up that kind of is something, because we've been talking about keeping it simple, right? So showing us something that you can do with your youth keepers and understand the context of it so that you can bring it. Because again, I think the issue that we're really coming down to here is it's the lack of communication when you go and shadow someone's session. Is you really need to understand the context of why they're doing this, what the why, and then, understand that, every session is still going to be different because it's going to be different goalkeepers, regardless of whether you take, Todd, your session to Sporting KC2. They're completely different human beings. So it might not look exactly the same because everyone's got different attributes, different things like that. So does anyone have a session that they want to kind of show?
I mean, I can show you one of mine from our preseason, let me probably pull this up here. And it's very simple. I'll just kind of let it play here. And I think one of the questions you can always ask is, what stage are you in? This is a preseason type of session, where you're just getting a lot of touches. We're trying to get just some basic, fitness elements. This is from Tucson of this year. So when you just go to a random session, what point of the year is it? What point of the week is it? What are you trying to get out of it? Those are simple questions that I know that I would ask if I was, say, going into a Liverpool session or anywhere around the world. Is this based on your opponent? Do you see something from your opponent that you're trying to apply into your session? Again, these are, simple little warm-up little exercise. I can kind of fast forward to give you some others ideas, but gradually trying to get themselves, again, this is preseason. So we're trying to get lateral movement. We're trying to get just, a lot of hands, on the ball type of thing. Would I do this every day throughout the course of a season? No, but during the preseason, I'm going to do a lot of different things like this. So those are definitely questions that I would begin to ask, if I was just going to a random session. Yeah.
No, Mitch, did you ever have anybody shadow your sessions like this? And do they kind of ask you questions, before you guys kind of have a conversation on what the session was and what it is?
I mean, with COVID and everything, we haven't really had people out. We're kind of like the first team. We're kind of in our own little bubble. I've had some talks with some different goalkeeper coaches that I know that I've shown them kind of what we've been doing and then why we're doing that.
Yeah.
Again, the reason that I do things is for the development of our goalkeepers. I don't, I think maybe once a week I'll do something leading up into the game, but it's mainly for the development of the guys. And like Todd, I try to keep it as simple as possible and let the play do what it needs to do, because you can't really make it too complicated because they just as a player, you just go and you do the drill and you get what's out of it. So that's what I want as a coach. I want these guys to just develop and be within the moment in the game.
Yeah. Todd, what are some of the mistakes that you've seen younger coaches make when they're planning out their week? Obviously Mitch has mentioned right now that, the whole kind of basically the template or the methodology for his SKC2 is this is a year of development. It's a stepping stone team up to the next team. So he's kind of already has a game plan. But like, have you seen a lot of coaches they don't have a game plan and because of that their sessions are all over the place?
Yeah, I think you see that a lot. And especially at the youth level, and for no fault of some of those coaches within those environments. A lot of them, the goalkeeper coach position might not be a full-time job for them. So they might be working another job, and now they leave their job, and now they go to their club, and they're trying to think of something, off the cuff, which we've all done. I'm sure Mitch has done that. I've done that. Sometimes you just off the cuff, you put a session together, and the more experienced you are, the more easier that becomes. But I think the biggest thing that I see in a lot of those scenarios is just it's a physical load standpoint. Where they don't think about, okay, it's a Monday night, it's a Tuesday night, it's a Wednesday, it's a Friday or Thursday or whatever the case may be. And maybe they play on Saturday and now it's Thursday night. And now I've got the majority of my session is diving. And now these kids have dove, 50, 60, 70 times. Now 48 hours later, they got a game, but they think they've got to cram in all this heavy load type of stuff almost every time they go out there. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that, the inexperienced or newcomer to the goalkeeper coaching position, where again, like Mitch had said, whether they feel they have to please the parents that they're getting their work in or whatever the case may be. That I think is one of the biggest issues, and I know when I work with a lot of young kids, and I still do, obviously I'm in a first team environment, but there's still kids here and around the Salt Lake City area that I'll work with, because I enjoy that teaching aspect and I don't get as much in the first team environment. Is that me or is that you?
It's not me. It's not me. Where's that coming from?
Where is that?
Mitch, was that from you?
That wasn't me.
I don't know where. It was like all of a sudden just like electronica music playing. I was like, dude, all of a sudden we're in Ibiza. This is not. I just thought all of a sudden a pyrotechnic show was going to break out. Does anyone know where this is coming from?
I don't know. Did somebody hack into our Zoom?
Someone hack into our Zoom?
I think so, because I don't know where that's coming from.
Through DC United's academy system. So for those who don't know, that is a MLS team, which is the top tier here in the United States. So I played for their academy when I was 16 and 17. So
wait, where is this coming from?
Where I headed off to college. And honestly, with DC United's academy, I was the number one choice. I was always the second option, so I was the backup.
Who's talking right now?
With them, I was very lucky that the developmental academy, I was part of that last class.
Somebody's tapped in there.
High school.
Dude, someone.
So I was very fortunate where I was able to.
There's nobody else in this thing here. Are you, someone mute. I'm going to mute my computer and see if it stops.
There, because it's always very important to get games.
Can anyone hear it? It's on Todd's end.
Me as a player,
yeah, I still hear it.
I was surrounded by other guys who were.
I think it's on your end, Todd. Are you sure you don't have a window open?
When Todd muted his, I didn't hear it anymore.
Yeah, I don't hear it. I don't hear it now. When Todd, you mute your computer. This is hilarious. This is amazing. Well, now you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
Is his YouTube still open?
I don't have it.
Yeah. Oh, was your YouTube still open?
No, it was closed.
Oh, it's gone now. All right.
Gone now.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, well, let's.
My wife's asking, and she texted me. She goes, "I think somebody's YouTube's still open."
Yeah, mine was closed. That was weird.
Man, dude, I've been having so many weird computer issues. I don't know if you guys saw yesterday's episode, but I couldn't see anybody like the whole time until like near the end. So I was like kind of flying blind. I'm like, and okay, so based on your voice, I'm thinking this is what you just did. So let's move here. And then like I couldn't play videos. It was a whole disaster. Speaking of disasters, you talking about the load management, Todd. Mitch, I want to bring that up with you because, you know, you obviously see the youth players. Is that something that just a lot of youth coaches don't take into consideration, is that youth players need recovery as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they do, but I think so I'm actually having that problem with our youth player that we brought into our environment. They want to train so much. And they just they think if I go in and I take 1,000 shots a day, that's going to make me better. I don't think it will. It's just going to hurt you or in the long run or hurt you physically in the near future. I think for me, it's not about how much you do. It's about the quality of what you do. So I could go and run a youth session and be done in, 25, 30 minutes. Same we do with our pro guys. But the reason that we're able to do it with our pro guys and in the environment that we're in is that everything's, bang, 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 right? They go from activity to activity and they do everything clean and sharp the first time. And that's why we don't need to be out there an hour and a half for a goalkeeper session when we're going in with the team afterwards. We don't want these guys on their feet for 3 hours. So they have to be out there and do their work. And I think from a youth standpoint, sometimes they're out there too long because you feel like it has to be an hour, maybe to please somebody or whatever, or just the kids just aren't, they just, I want another rep or I want another rep, and for me, it's quality over quantity, even at the younger age groups.
Yeah. I mean, Todd, I know that's something that you've been really big on, is that quality over quantity. And that's something actually I learned from you at a very early age. Well, I mean, not like very early age. I mean, like early in my youth coaching career days, let's just say. Mitch, you don't know this. I just opened up one of Todd's manuals and just stole all the sessions. And I was like, oh, this is going to work because this guy does it. This is clearly going to work. And no, I need to have a discussion with him and understand why I didn't know what I was doing. But you brought up a really fantastic point right there. And that is when people watch a session, Todd, like let's say somebody comes and watches an RSL session, right? And they go, oh, well, that only took 20 minutes. Then that expectation again, like you were talking about, Todd, is okay, why is this session taking me 45 minutes with my U11s? Todd was able to make it happen in 20 minutes. Like, what is wrong with me as a coach, or what is wrong with my players, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and that goes along with that expectation as well. And if I take, say, the exact same session that I did with Zach McMath and Andrew Puttner this morning, and time-wise, it was very light. Obviously, played last night. It was maybe 20 minutes that we had, something like that, 25 tops. And if I were to take that with a bunch of U10s, U12s, 13s, whatever, tonight, I might go through that session, but it might take me 45 minutes. And the reason being is, one, they're not going to do it as quickly. Two, I'm probably going to break down their technical attributes within the exercise a lot more and be a lot pickier because they're still more in that developmental stage than, say, our goalkeepers here. Now, that's not saying I'm not going to tweak or I'm not going to say, hey, let's body shape. And usually it's like a keyword here, or a trigger word, with my guys. I might be like shape, hands, forward, like little trigger words where I might stop the exercise with those younger kids and actually physically show them or ask them a question. I'm big in asking questions, to see if they have the ability to regurgitate. Well, that takes time. I'm not doing that with my first team goalkeepers as much. So from that example there, that's why it might take you a longer period of time, because those younger goalkeepers are just in a different phase of their development, say, than a first team goalkeeper. So the expectation is it's not going to take you 25 minutes. If it took me 25 minutes, I would never expect to go through that same exercise with younger kids and for the same time, because then I'm probably not doing my job correctly, because I'm not helping that young player actually develop or work on that skill or technique or attribute, whatever.
Yeah, I think you brought up something that's really important right there, Todd. And Mitch, I want to talk to you about this because obviously you have the developmental phase from, Darren at the academy up to you before they get to, to Alec, is that trying to squeeze too much into a session because they think they have to. And Mitch, I'm sure you've seen this in your playing career where as you're coming up and you've got a coach who's like, he's trying to squeeze 34 different scenarios into an hour session. And you're like, we didn't even scratch the surface of what I really need to work on here.
Yeah. I think that goes into the planning stage of what you want to get accomplished and what you have available. Darren, it's a bit different with the academy and Darren because they have, higher numbers. He's working with 6, 7, 8 guys at a time. So his sessions look a little bit different, maybe more ball sets than mine. Maybe he's trying to do different topics in one session because, just the numbers or what the kids can't come early to training to get started, the 14s, 15s, 16s. So he's kind of handcuffed to the time that he has available to him by the coaching staff. With me, they're always there an hour and a half before training. Same with Alec with the first team. So we can kind of manipulate the time we go out. If I need even more time, I just tell them to come earlier. So from a standpoint of time, I think with the younger kids and in the club setup, we have our own fields, same thing that RSL has. So we never have to fight for field time. A normal club, they may have another team or another club on the field before they even get there, so they can't go early. So it's
another sport on the field sometimes too. Like literally, I've had like lacrosse is going on, and I'm like, I don't know how safe this is, guys. Maybe you should move. We got little hard balls that are flying in towards the goalkeeper area. And of course, they always stick us in some random area. They're like, yeah, well, they're doing lacrosse scrimmages. All you guys need is like 4 yards, right? And they just put us in some little corner right there.
Champ in the corner.
Yeah, basically. I want to bring this up right here because, Todd, you were obviously showing a little bit of that session right there. And I don't know if either one of you guys has any more video that you want to show, but I kind of want to maybe break down what, if I'm a coach who's watching this session, what should I be looking at right now in this session? And maybe both of you guys can kind of say like, okay, if I'm at this session, this is what I would be looking at, or this is what this coach should be looking at. Anybody did you want to show the Darren session, for instance, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, his is, I have like the plan for it, but okay. I mean, looking back at what Todd showed, okay, I'm pretty sure that, if I was a youth coach and I was going to watch that session, as somebody that doesn't know the context of the scenario, right? You're probably going into it, okay, why are these guys only moving 3 yards? Okay, why are they doing a lot of stuff right to them? And those things are, why aren't they traveling across the goal for a full, these are the things that youth goalkeeper coaches sometimes think about, right? They don't look at, okay, is he catching every single ball cleanly and then moving on to the next action? Are his passes sharp? The little scenarios, why, and the main thing is like, I just don't think that they understand how much work you can actually get done in a little space, doing the type of session that Todd's doing. Because for me, I emphasize catching the ball probably more than a lot of people because I made a career off of it. I didn't give up rebounds, and yeah, I got scored on a lot like in the corners, but I'm not going to give up a rebound goal because I pride myself on holding the ball. 90% of your shots are right to you. So if you can hold the ball and not give up a bad rebound, then you're probably going to be more successful than not. And I think that when Todd's talking about the preseason and doing a lot of reps, a lot of catching, a lot of holding, a lot of shape work, that's just going to set you up for future success throughout the season when you are doing more complex things.
I think you brought up a really good point in regards to the looking at the session and looking like why are they moving 3 yards? I think one of the biggest issues, Todd, and I'm sure you've seen this as well too, is people say, hey, give me that session, and they're focused on the X's and O's of it in regards to the actual structure of the session and how to run the session rather than why the session is being run. and I think that's something that's kind of evolved in my coaching careers. I started realizing I'm taking this from a completely wrong attitude. I'm putting the cart before the horse. Like, I need to know what I need the session to be about and why I'm doing it. And then I can create the session based on that. Right.
Yeah. I think for me, it's, I've got to look at the end point. When I'm trying to create a session, it's like, all right, what do I really want to get out of the session? And it might be dealing with the cross. I want my final piece, because it might be a wide service day for the team, and I want to kind of integrate them into that. And I'm going to look at that end point, and then I'm going to kind of build backwards to the front, as opposed to the other way around, thinking, okay, I want to start with a jog, a stretch, and then I want to go to the next phase of this, and then this. I want to go the other way. I want to figure out, what do I want to get out of it, and then kind of go backwards from there. So the last thing I'm piecing together, because I want it to kind of build one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So they're gradually warmed up on that topic till their end piece. And then hopefully at that end piece of that goalkeeper specific session, now they're getting integrated with the team, and they're fully in tune, their body's prepped, their mind's prepped, their hands are prepped, whatever the case may be. And now they're going to hopefully have the most success once they're integrated in that team. So for me, when I'm looking to build in a session, I'm looking at the end point first, as opposed from starting to build from the warm up and then up. I want to go backwards.
I think that's something that a lot of youth coaches don't look at as well too, in regards to, going and integrating with the team. Like, the whole point of the session is to put them with the team. So they start going into they're dealing with the scenarios, and they're learning how to problem solve these on their own, because they're familiar with all the different scenarios that you've been putting them through. Mitch, I don't know if you've noticed this or whatever, but a lot of times there isn't that vertical integration between these youth players into the more advanced environment. And because of that, it makes it difficult sometimes, like at a club, when you take a younger kid and put them on the DA team or MLS Next or whatever it's called now, because they haven't been in that environment before. So is it difficult for you to try to train these youth players in a more advanced environment if they haven't been through it before?
Yeah, I think so. We're lucky, and most MLS teams are lucky where they play the same style and what they do throughout all ages. So when they come to me, they're kind of familiar about what we do as a club and how we go about things and how we play, and how we want to set up our goalkeepers. But from a normal youth club aspect, they're a lot of times they're not having a goalkeeper session before their session, right? Their goalkeeper sessions on a Friday night or a Wednesday night, and they train Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's more of a goalkeeper session rather than, for us, it is I don't want to say a glorified warm-up, because it's not, but it's like Todd said, you're activating them for what they're going to be doing in training with the team, whether it's a scenario or a situation or whatever it may be. They have that end goal, that end phase, when a lot of times in the youth game, there's not that. You train as hard as you can, and then you go home.
Yeah. No, and by the way, Todd, I like the thing that you were saying in regards to, and then now they're going off and hopping off with the team, because I think one of the issues that I've seen a lot of times, and I know I've been guilty of this in the past, when I first got in the collegiate environment, because I'd come from the youth club game, I freaked out. I'm like, it's been 5 minutes. They just called the goalkeepers. Like, no, I don't understand. Like, I had this whole session planned out, and like, but no, they didn't do this. They didn't do this. They don't do this. As if like I have a magic wand. And if they'd done the whole session, they were going to do much better once they got in with the team. And obviously, we all know now that that's not the case. But I think people need to look at that too when they see your sessions, Todd, and go, that might have not been my session, guys. That might have been 10 minutes of what I had planned out for the day, and they got called in, and so I had to make adjustments.
Well, and I think that's the biggest challenge in our job. And I'm sure Mitch is learning this, because you might be in those staff meetings, prior, and they're like, okay, you have about 20, 30 minutes before we need you. Well, sometimes it's 10 or 15, and then sometimes it could be 30 or 40, depending on how their session goes. So you have to be able to adapt. I mean, I joke all the time because, you know, usually afterwards, like, oh, sorry, we needed a little bit earlier. Oh, sorry, we went a little long. My comment is, reply is almost always the same. It's all right. We're goalkeepers. We're chameleons. We can adapt to anything, you know, but you have to be as a goalkeeper coach, because we are that individual in a team sport. So we are going to be by ourselves sometimes. And when they need us, we've got to be ready, and boom, we go. And it doesn't really matter if I'm in the middle of my session or my session's complete and I'm adding on something, because there's many times, and Mitch can probably attest to this, where they go long, but we're already done. Mm-hmm. And then I think the real challenge is, okay, now I'm looking over and I'm seeing what phase they're in, and they've got at least another 8 to 10 minutes. How am I going to fill some time without really physically taxing them? So when they do get integrated, now they can't perform appropriately. Those are the difficult times, you know, more so than they need them early. Yep. So, and those are the times that I worry, you know, when we've got extra time versus less time, because it's a lot easier to adapt with less, you know, than, oh, now I've just got through my 25-minute session. They're pretty physically taxed. Maybe it's a Tuesday and it's been a little bit heavy, and now I got to come up with another 10 minutes or fill some dead air, so to speak.
As a young coach, go ahead, Todd.
But and I know for myself, I'm not sure about Mitch, I always over prepare. So I'll always try to have a couple extra exercises kind of within my plan for those moments. You know, so okay, if we run over, instead of me thinking, oh, I'm scratching my head, what am I going to do now? I've got a couple things kind of on my plan that, okay, if they do go over, these are some topics that maybe are more general topics that we want to cover. Might not be actual specific to what they're going to integrate into, but it might be maybe some more IDP stuff, like the individual development plan type of things. Okay, now we can work on some specific things for those individual goalkeepers. It might be 1, 2, or 3, whatever we're working with it on that individual day.
I'm glad you didn't bring up it just saying, like, because I mean, I'm like, I don't know, guys, side volley 20 minutes. No, like that happened to me, like when I first started coaching DA, and it was the very first time in a youth game that I had an integration with the actual team, because with the DA, it wasn't just a goalkeeper session on a nebulous day. I was the goalkeeper coach with the DA players. So they were going off to the team. And I remember the first time, and they're still going, and I was so insecure, and I'm like, well, they're going to fire me. Like, if I don't do something with them, they're just going to think that, like, I'm slacking off. So I just start having them doing through ball work. And they came into the game and they were exhausted and they're just getting pummeled. And then the coach is like, he's like, this is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh, that was my fault. That was my fault. And of course they're just doing whatever I'm telling them to do. Cause they don't want to get yelled at. They're not gonna be like, hey coach, you know, I don't think this is the right session, situation, right now. Kind of before we start going, guys, Mitch, I want to ask you this, because you were talking about youth players being brought into your environment, right? Does that make your session more difficult for you? Do you have to adjust your session, or do they just have to, okay, I already see the way your head's kind of going. It's like, no, they have to go with the flow and they have to deal with it.
Yeah, I think from our setup, which I'm sure it is with RSL and the Monarchs and their academy, is that if we bring you up, we expect you to raise your level, or we're not going to bring our level down to you. And we've actually had that here when I've been here. If the level's dropping, then you're no longer going to be with us. You no longer have that ability to, you know, you got to earn that ability to come back up with us. Same thing with, you know, if we send a goalkeeper up, you know, one of our guys up to the first team, and he's letting in a bunch of soft goals, you better believe that Peter Vermees is going to send him right back down. So it's our job to make these guys realize that you need to be the best person in our academy to come up with us, and then you need to be the best one in our second team to go up with Alex. So we're not going to drop our level, and you better believe that, you know, the first team guys, the second team guys, they're not going to drop their level. They're going to see a young kid coming up, they're going to put you right back down to the ground, and that's the professional atmosphere. That's what you're dealing with. And we're very lucky here that even kids down to our 12s and 13s know what the expectation is, what the atmosphere is, and they rise to the challenge. So we've never had to really worry about the mentality standpoint, and they get it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up in regards to if they've got to be at that level. I think a lot of, honestly, when I've had conversations with some kids, is they just assume that, oh, well, they just needed a guy. They just needed a guy up there, so that's why that guy's training there or whatever. And I think a lot of times it's just to justify the fact that they weren't called up. They're like, well, so-and-so just happened to be at the field that day, and that's why he's now training with the first team or training with the reserves or whatever, And Mitch, I'm glad that you brought up the case. It's like, no, that you got and Todd, I know there's a lot of flip-flopping as well with some of the younger guys at your club as well, too.
Yeah, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there for a lot of the youth soccer club goalkeeper coaches there, and exactly what Mitch was saying. And I learned, early on in my coaching career is you always coach to your best player, and what Mitch was talking about, you've got to be at that level, and we all have been in those environments where you go to a youth soccer club on a Thursday night or Friday night or whenever that hour goalkeeper session is, and you might have a hodgepodge of boys, girls, 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and it's a wide range of ability, a wide age range. You got boys and girls all over the place, and it can be a little bit of a mess to try to organize and get anything out of it. But I think as long as you coach to your best goalkeeper, and that maybe those goalkeepers that, are maybe a little bit younger or a little bit less experienced, they've got to keep up. Because if you're coaching to the weaker kids, those older kids and better kids aren't going to develop. Those weaker kids have to be able to keep up with your best ones. So I think there's a great lesson to be learned of exactly what Mitch said, whether it's a first team environment, whether it's a USL environment, or whether it's just an average soccer club environment. Always coach to your best players, whoever they are, and everybody else has to sink or swim and try to keep up, because that's also going to help their development, because they're going to constantly push, because the ante's a bit raised for them all the time, because they have to be able to keep up with them at every turn. So I think it's not just in the first team environment or the pro environment, so to speak.
Yeah, you just actually made me think about when I've run rec sessions before, and I've made that mistake. I'm not gonna lie, where I've been like, so-and-so can't catch a ball. I got to spend all this time with so-and-so. There might be a kid there who could be playing comp, but no one's ever pushed them before, or they've never gotten that right training. If I put all my time into that kid, maybe that kid moves on, and if so-and-so picks up a little bit of stuff, so be it, that's great, but I think that's been a mistake that I've made in the past, is like, I think it's me just feeling empathy or whatever for that kid and being like, oh man, that sucks for this kid. Like, they don't even know what they're doing. Like, I need to help them. I mean, it's such a good point, man. And I don't want to say it's cutthroat or anything like that, but I think it's realistic, and in regards to, from a productivity standpoint for the coach, it's better. Mitch, kind of as we start wrapping up right here, is there anything you kind of want to lay out last in regards to your session layouts and any advice to any young coaches out there on how to, plan out whether it's their season or just their week in general?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's try to have a long-term goal and then have short-term expectations. You have, so for me, before COVID, I had a plan. This is my first year, coaching in the professional. I had a plan. Okay, I'll watch Charlotte, or I'll watch Memphis, or I'll watch these guys, and we'll be just like the first team. Tuesday we'll come in, Wednesday tactical, Thursday, more about the opponent, Friday, match day -1. And I had this whole thing. And then during the break, I rethought about it, and I said, well, my job is to, my long-term goal is to get Brooks ready for the first team next year, but then make sure that our academy kids have that opportunity to maybe, be in that environment next year, every once in a while getting called up or whatever. That's my long-term goal. So my short-term expectations is the development, is the okay, are we fixing what's wrong on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis? And I think for our first team, I'm just speaking from what I've seen, it's about the long-term expectations is to win an MLS Cup. When I was with Atlanta, our long-term expectations were to win an MLS Cup. Our week-to-week, Aaron Hyde, our week-to-week was to get ready for the next opponent, and it was to get Brad, make sure that he knew what was going on the weekend. And I'm sure that, I know that Alec does that with Tim, and I know that Todd does that, whoever's playing there. And so you just got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think Todd, earlier in this conversation, why the context of the session. I think that builds up to your end goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it right on the mark right there. Todd, anything you want to elaborate on or give another little piece of words of wisdom for the people listening right here and watching before we take off?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would maybe add, to all this is that relationship element between you and all your goalkeepers, which is a major, major key component. Obviously at the younger ages, you can still communicate and you can have dialogue back and forth. And when I have that dialogue, I'm talking about, talking about exercises, talking about what their wants, what do they feel their needs are, that kind of thing. And those are conversations that I have with my goalkeepers all the time. Obviously, they might not always get exactly what they want. I'm going to be the one that's kind of coordinating those things. But at the end of the day, my job, Mitch's job, or any goalkeeper's job is work to get our goalkeepers playing in the best possible way they can, so they're able to perform at the highest level they can on the weekend. So I use the example of Nikki a lot. I came here 4 years ago. Nikki's obviously one of the, probably best goalkeepers to ever play in this league. If I would have come in here with the attitude and said, Nikki, it's my way or the highway. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And whether you like it or not, this is what we're going to do. Well, what if my way doesn't get the best elements out of what Nikki can provide? At the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about Mitch. It's not about, Alec, whoever that goalkeeper. It's not about us. It's about those goalkeepers and keeping that dialogue almost on a day-to-day basis of, this is what I want to try to put together today. This is why I want to put it together. And are there other needs that maybe you feel you need to have? I know when I got here with Nicky, his philosophy wasn't exactly a carbon copy of my philosophy. And I had to kind of transition a little bit to cater a little bit to his specific needs, because he knew, as a 16, 17-year MLS veteran, he knew what he needed on a day-to-day basis to perform at a high level. And if I'm not able to provide that or unwilling to provide that, I look at it as I'm not really doing my job properly. So I think that open dialogue with your goalkeepers and explaining and talking to them and giving them that, almost like that they have a vested interest in their path, that they can have that conversation of, hey, you know what, I'd really like to be able to work on XYZ today or the next session or whatever. So I think that's really important. And I think that's really engaging for that young goalkeeper as well, that they feel that they do have a little bit of control in their path a little bit and have a voice in their path.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really great point. Well, guys, I apologize. I'm going to have to start wrapping up. I know I love talking, but I got a meeting. I think it's a weird world today with everything that's going on out here. By the way, everybody, thoughts and prayers to anybody dealing with the fires right now. I know it's a horrific situation here in Southern California. And I know a lot of clubs, not saying youth soccer is the most important thing in the world, but I know a lot of clubs are dealing with some issues, in the last couple of days. So, I just hope everyone stays safe and everyone makes smart decisions when it comes to air quality and all that sort of stuff. Mitch, if anybody wants to reach out to you, if they want to, maybe they're in the KC area and, they want to maybe meet up. I don't know. Again, I don't know what your guys' bubble situation is or whatever, but maybe they just want to interact through email or whatever. Where's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, social media, my name's Mitch Hildy, all the social media stuff. And then my first initial last name at Sporting Kansas City. So I'm pretty, pretty well, I'll get back to you. a lot of people helped me throughout my journey, so I'm more than willing to help anybody that needs it throughout theirs.
Yeah. Speaking of willing to help out, Todd actually has a mentoring program that we will plug right now. So before we head off, Todd, instead of saying where can people reach out to you, why don't you tell them a little bit about the coaching mentorship program, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I started with players a couple months ago, and now I'm actually doing it with young goalkeeper coaches as well, to basically provide them as kind of that mentor on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis of helping them in their pathway, helping them with their career, helping them with training sessions, providing them with a goalkeeper curriculum for their youth soccer club, talking about periodization and how you kind of coordinate that kind of thing into their goalkeeper training. So, and a wide variety of different, every month we get on Zoom calls just like this, and we talk about a lot of different topics. And it's been a lot of fun. Basically it's 101goalkeeping.com. That's the number one goalkeeping.com. That's my website. You can get a little bit more information on that and any other programs we have. And that's the easiest way to contact me as well. So I do have all the social media, but I'm 48, so I'm not as young as Mitch. He's a little bit more adept to the social media. I'm still learning all that. I still have it, but email is probably and phone is the easiest way to get a hold of me, which is all on the website.
Which you still have that YouTube channel going though. I saw that you finally put the whole YouTube channel thing going together with the sessions. So
yeah, but I'm old school. I've got it up, and Omar helped get it up, but I'm terrible at adding stuff to it. It just seems foreign to me. Social media is very foreign to me.
Well, speaking of foreign social media, it's at Goalkeeper Podcast, guys. Obviously, if you want to reach out to us or contact at insidethe18media.com if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion. Thoughts and prayers to everybody dealing with the fires. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.